So, and just so everyone's aware, this will be recorded. So I want to start off by sharing a little bit of the Hsi Career Collaborative. This is an organization that consists of 14 Hispanic serving institutions across the country. And all our programming is for all students and alumni representing our HSIs. So I want to offer a special thank you to our sponsors. And I want to highlight our platinum sponsors, CrowdStrike and AbbVie. And so you can see here our gold sponsors. All of the companies here, and including the career fair partners, are going to be recruiting our students next week. So this event is preparation for what you'll be expecting next week. And so if we can go to the next slide. So this is the agenda for today. I'm Mario Vela. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost of Career Engaged Learning here at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Our keynote address will be Katrina Kibben, and I'll be sharing her profile, and I'll also include everything that I'm reading. That way you can see what a fantastic keynote speaker we have. We'll be following that up with a career success panel moderated by Evelyn Ramos, and then you'll see our platinum sponsors represented at this panel, AbbVie and CrowdStrike. And then we have a very special announcement. Yalitza Howard, the Director of Career Services at Texas A&M International, has developed a student scholarship, and we will be letting all our students know how to register, or how to apply rather, for that scholarship. And so we'll be sharing that information at the conclusion of the program. All right, so I see Chicago represented now, UIC, fantastic, UTRGV, great. All right, so to kick us off, I'm excited to introduce Katrina Kibben. She's the CEO, the CEO of 3 Years Media, keynote speaker, non-binary, LGBTQ plus advocate, and writing expert. Pronouns they, them, teaches hiring teams how to write inclusive, unbiased job postings that still attract exceptional talent. With 15 years of corporate copywriting and training experience, Katrina knows how to turn talented recruiting teams into talented writers. It takes 2 key ingredients: inspiration and practical advice, of which Katrina has plenty. Katrina is a featured HR and recruiting expert in publications like the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, and Forbes. They've worked with companies ranging from NPR to Rust-Oleum and everything in between, including some of the best pizza makers and cancer researchers on the planet. Before founding 3 Years Media, Katrina was a CMO, technical copywriter, and managing editor for leading HR media and technology companies like Monster.com, Care.com, and Ronstadt Worldwide. They most recently have been named a 2022 LinkedIn top voice in job search and careers in the US and Canada. When not speaking, writing, or training, you'll find Katrina hiking or playing with the inspirations behind the name 3 Years Media, 2 adorable dogs named Lyric and Ruby. I'm proud to introduce Katrina next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario. I really appreciate this. You know, whenever my bio is being read on screen, I have this moment where I kind of realize that my life probably wasn't supposed to turn out like this. And I'm going to teach you how to read between the lines of a job posting today and use all of that expert advice and the things that I've learned by working with the companies I'm sure a lot of you want to work for. But in that moment of realization, I had this clicking, this light bulb, right? Like so many of you, I'm a first-generation college student. I was raised by people who had 2 paths in life, or at least that's what we were all told. You could join the army or you could work on our family's farm. And that was that. And frankly, I didn't really want to go to college. My mom was the one who convinced me, you know, running a bunch of numbers and telling me that I would never make money if I didn't go to college. And I just wanted to join the army. I thought I would just follow the path. I could do everything I wanted to do there, but that wasn't how it ended up. And not taking that path that was traditional for my entire family meant I didn't have a lot of people to ask. I didn't have a lot of people to call. I didn't have, someone I could go home to and say, do you know what my resume should look like? That journey of figuring things out, those lessons that I wish I had known before I ever was put in front of someone who was hiring at a job fair like the one that's being held next week for all of you, or in any interview environment. That was the inspiration behind this presentation, and why I really hope that for the next hour and 15 minutes or so, while we're all together, that you can give your full attention, because I think I could change your life, and I know I can change your career. And with that said, I think it's really important that if we're going to talk about the story of your whole career, if we're going to set the tone and give you some insights that help you tell your story so you can get hired, that I start by telling you how I got into this business at all, and why this is so important to me, why I think it's so important that you have these lessons and you learn how to read between the lines of a job posting. So I'm about to share my screen. And when I do, I want you to open up the chat and I want you to type and tell me what you see. I know that sounds random, but I am going to insist on participation every single step of the way, because I don't do this to talk to myself, okay? All right, I know you can see my screen because I see you in the chat telling me that you are looking at a house. And that's not just any house. That is my first house. And I mentioned that I was an Army brat. Both of my parents were active duty military, and that means that I moved 13 times before I ever graduated high school. We went everywhere and anywhere the military told us to go. And I know that buying your first home is special for everyone, but I got to tell you, I think it means something extra special when you've moved 13 times prior. To this day, I'm standing in front of you, and I have never lived in one place for more than 3 years of my life. And so the idea that I was going to be in one place, the idea that I would stay, the idea that this was mine, meant more than I can begin to explain without feeling really, really emotional in this conversation. And if you stare very closely, and I can tell a few of you are very observant, you'll notice that a lot of these houses look exactly the same. We've been to that subdivision, all the houses are made of ticky-tacky. They all look exactly the same, one by one. Same bricks, same builds, same outlines. And inevitably, when you're using the same materials on every single house, they run out of things. And so my closing in the process of buying this house kept getting pushed back by days, by a week, here and there, simply because they were missing one thing. And at the time, I was working in an open office environment. And so I had 3 pod mates that sat with me every single day, and they were becoming very invested in me getting this house. I think, honestly, they were probably a little tired of listening to me ramble on and ask all of these questions to the people building the house. Like, how does this happen? You're building 15 houses. How did you not order enough? It doesn't make sense to me. Please, just let me have my house. And after weeks of exasperation and frustration, the big day came. I will never forget, because it was probably the best moment of my life up to that point. I remember stepping away from my desk because I didn't want to bother my office mates even more. And I stepped into a hallway that was glass lined. So everyone could see me, but in theory, they couldn't hear me. And I thought I was being more appropriate. And they say, okay, Katrina, it was a Wednesday. And they said, okay, on Friday, we're going to close. Okay, you can probably tell I'm pretty high energy. I won't drop that energy as we go through this, but the energy that I felt at that moment was level 100. I'm pretty sure in front of all those people in the middle of this hallway, I was dancing, I was singing. I could not have been more excited, because this was it. My keys, my home, my place. And my next meeting immediately following that call was my one-on-one with my manager. And, he maybe wasn't as energetic as I can be. And often he would tell me, just tone it down a little bit, cool off. And I remember thinking, okay, take a deep breath, Katrina. You cannot bounce your way through this next hour of conversation with him. And so I remember that big, deep breath I took as I stood outside of the office. All right, we're going into this conference room. We're going to have this quick conversation about what's next and go through my priorities for my work. And as I walked into that room, I could feel this weight. It was tangible. It almost felt like it hit me as I stepped in. And just moments after I sat down at that table, he said something that I wasn't expecting at all. I hope none of you have to experience the weight that I'm describing right now, because the next words out of his mouth were, "I'm really sorry, Katrina, today's going to be your last day. We're doing a round of layoffs." And in that moment, it was like being on a roller coaster. I went from the highest high of my entire life to what I would describe as rock bottom. Because I was about to write a check for the majority of my savings account, and I had no idea where my next paycheck was going to come from. I had absolutely no clue how I would pay the second mortgage or the third one. I didn't have family members to call to write me a check. Remember that whole farm and military thing? They're not exactly flush with cash. I wanted to put furniture in that house. I wanted that to be my home. And I'm seeing some of the reactions come through on the chat, and I can imagine you're feeling some of the things that I was feeling that day, especially if you've ever been there before. And I am starting our conversation with that story, not so you feel bad for me, okay? So I want to be really clear. I got a job, I got the house, I was able to pay the bills, all right? Everything turned out okay. I'm standing in front of you. I'm presenting from my very own company. It all turned out all right. I'm telling you this story because of what happened next. Because I went home and, like I said, I didn't have options. I didn't have family members I was just going to call up and get some check from. I had to figure it out. And so I opened up the internet and I typed in marketing anywhere and I hit enter, because I was willing to go anywhere to be able to know I could pay my bills and take care of myself. And you know what I was met with when I opened up that search? Lies, cliches, people just making stuff up. My personal favorite was watching them just say, we need 15 years of Facebook experience, when Facebook had not even been around that long. Right? Or entry-level jobs that required 5 years of experience. What do you mean entry level? It was clear to me that they did not know what they were doing. It was clear to me that they didn't know how to describe the work. And you know what else was really, really clear to me? I didn't understand anything. And I surely didn't know how I was going to interpret that information to help me find my career. And the thing that I realize over and over again when I tell that story, or I stand in front of people like you and I have this conversation, is that I am not special. Every single one of us have those moments when we are flush with doubt. When we tell ourselves, because of a job posting or anything else that we see on the internet, that we can't do it, that we can't have that job, that we can't figure it out. And knowing what a job search feels like, that it feels vulnerable, that it feels risky, that it feels like your whole life is on the line, and maybe even your dreams. I think that's intel that every single person should have. without a doubt, no questions asked. Every single person should know how to do this, because if you have a dream, you should have access to it. That is what I want to teach you how to do today. I want to teach you how to use the intel you have, the tools you have, no matter what your story is, no matter what your background is. I want to teach you how to use this content to get one step closer to your dream. Or hell, even just a job that'll pay the damn bills. I want that for you. And I want to help you every single step of the way. You probably noticed when you saw my bio that it does not say resume expert or cover letter writer. That's actually not what I do at all. That moment when I opened up the internet and I saw those job postings and I was like, this is ridiculous. It inspired me. A few years later, I decided to start a company called 3 Years Media. And at 3 Years Media, we teach recruiters to write. We teach them how to write those job postings through trainings, speaking engagements, just like this, full of rooms like them. We do a lot of job post writing and content creation for them. And I've realized that that secret should not be held to rooms of HR executives. They don't need this advice as much as you do. So I'm here today to share it with you, the insider information that most people never get. And I want to help. I hope you have your chat open so you can ask questions, because you have to understand these concepts to be successful in your career. Just simply finding the job, because if you never find the job, you can't have it. That's why I chose these lessons. That's why we'll be having this conversation, okay? I want to pause really quickly to say thank you to the sponsors. They are both hiring, and I'll be using their postings as examples as we go through this. So thank you to AbbVie. Thank you to CrowdStrike. I would not be here without them. And I hope that you'll consider working with them too. Look at their jobs. Use this advice to help you analyze what you really want. These 4 lessons will be starting with job titles. Again, if you cannot find the job, you can't have it. I'm going to tell you how to find it in the first place and how to understand what job titles and how they're created behind the scenes. I want to talk about understanding what's most important in a job. They say a lot, but some say nothing at all. I'm going to tell you how to distill the most critical information so you can incorporate it into your job search to help you find the job you want more quickly. I'm going to teach you how to answer the question, tell me about yourself. No matter your age, no matter your background, I can almost guarantee someone will ask you that question in the context of your career at some point. I want to make sure you know what to say, and then we'll talk about your LinkedIn profile. We're going to go top to bottom, and I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to upgrade that profile and make sure that any employer who looks wants to hire you. Reminder, use the chat. And if you need to reach out to me privately, I'm the only Katrina Kibben in the world. You will get a copy of the slides, and my email address is incorporated. I'm always happy to help any student. All right. I'm going to tell you something that is going to save you a lot of heartache, a lot of headache, a lot of madness, because I have spent so much time in my career chasing titles. I was a manager, then I wanted to be a director. I was a director, then I wanted to be a VP. I was a VP, and then I wanted to be a chief marketing officer. And I made my way all the way there, only to figure out that job titles are completely made up. Yep, they're made up. Every single company just picks what they want to call people. And I didn't really acknowledge that truth until I started my own company. And I realized there was no book. No one was going to tell me what to call people. And when I created business cards, I literally could type anything I wanted in that title line, anything at all. However, knowing that intel, knowing that the company is just making it up, it is not okay for you to just guess, because it puts you at a significant disadvantage. Because when we guess, often we land in a place where we are not tapping in to the search volume we need. And volume is absolutely critical. So let me give an example that can illustrate this point. To me, the job office assistant and administrative assistant is often the exact same job. You went down the street and you got a 10K bonus or pay raise, and that's what they call it there. Literally, people will say it that way. That's what we call it here. And you say yes, and that is what it is. And in the world of work, that's fine. In the world of job search, it's not, because if you put the words office assistant into Indeed when you're looking for a job, you might only see 4,000 jobs when administrative assistant has 80,000 jobs posted. Which pool do you want to be in? Where do you want to be found, and where do you want to look? You want to go to the biggest pool. You want to see the most jobs, because that gives you access to the opportunities that you deserve, access to the opportunities that could be great for you. But at what point are we ever taught how to find the title that's right for us? We aren't until now. Remember, you will get a copy of these slides. So I'm going to walk through how to, and you can always open up your internet right now and do this with me, right? And just keep the window open for later. No multitasking, or wait for the slides, okay? I want you to open up Google and search the job title you're using right now and the word resume. So marketing associate resume, HR associate resume, sales, whatever it is. I want you to type that into Google and hit enter. But you must have the word resume on the end, because here's what's going to happen. You will get millions of sample resumes. Click on the image search results up at the top, right beneath the search bar, and you'll be able to look at the resumes of people who have had that career. I think that's really interesting intel, and I'll explain why in just a second. What I'm asking you to look for first is to scan that resume and ask yourself, do I want this job? Do I want this kind of career path? And simultaneously, I want a piece of paper or a pen out, or maybe just an open WordPad window. And I want you to type in the job titles you're seeing, the alternatives. Maybe they don't call it an HR associate. Maybe they spell it out, human resources associate. Maybe they call it a HR assistant. All those spelling out, all the acronyms are all different search phrases. You know that. You Google all the time, right? Have you ever adapted your search really quick to twist it to make sure that you were getting the results you wanted? That's what we're doing with your job search right now. Write down 4 to 5 alternatives and plug it into something called Google Trends. It's trends, TRENDS.google.com. If you type in trends, I guarantee you it'll come up. You know, Google owns it and all. Here's how you can use that intel and why it's so helpful. First, resume templates galore. No more starting from a blank page ever again. You can download these resumes, tailor them to your background, and build up your resume with one that you know Google registers as the best resumes for this career. Boom, done. Next, it helps you understand career paths. If I take this job first, what happens next? What are my potential paths out of this and onward into my career? That information is not spelled out anywhere but someone's resume. This is a great place to get that intel without doing a bunch of informational interviews to talk to people about their unique paths. Finally, and of course, this is kind of the obvious answer, is it's going to give you alternative job searches. So you'll keep that sticky note or the digital sticky note of alternative job titles spelled out. Trends will tell you which one gets the most volume, but these alternatives put you in front of different jobs. So maybe you'll search 3 different jobs or set alerts for 3 different jobs to make sure that you are getting access to all the potential roles that you could work with. There you go. Now you know what to call yourself and also how to figure out how to be found. Use this intel. And if you're not sure how it works, if you want a little more advice on picking the right job title, I just wrote an article for job seekers that will help you figure that part out. The next piece, once you've found the right title, is actually distilling what's important. Because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of job posts say a lot without saying anything at all. So I want you to more think of this job posting from the perspective of the personal, but also the intel that's being provided to you. Let's start with the intel that's being provided to you. What did they actually say? So when a recruiter has a job posting, they're going to use keywords and phrases from that job posting to search their ATS, the applicant tracking system, to find you. No, robots do not do that. That's a lie. Don't let anyone tell you that. A human types in keywords and hits enter, but how do you know which keywords to put in there? You're going to take the job posting and put it into a free word cloud generator. Newsflash, recruiters have not done most jobs. They've only been recruiters. And so they don't always know how to write about the work. And when you don't know how to explain something, you will often just repeat words that you have heard over and over again from hiring managers or from your own ideas that you think are important. We do that in job postings. They do that in job postings, not so much. And so we're going to be able to distill those keywords from this bigger piece of content by using a free word cloud generator. You're going to find a free word cloud generator by opening Google and typing free word cloud generator and just use the first one. Use a free one. Don't pay for it is my biggest piece of advice. I don't actually care which one you use. Dump that in and then incorporate the top keywords into your resume and cover letter so that you know when a recruiter is scanning your information, they're seeing what they want. I used one of the job posts from CrowdStrike, our sponsor, to identify those keywords for you. So here's just a quick example from their Sales Excellent Elite Intern. This job is posted right now. So I took the content, I put it into the free word cloud generator, and I hit enter. And I want you to scan this for the words that you might include. So if you're a student and you're thinking about applying to this job, I would quickly identify these words and make sure they're part of my resume. Working with teams, right? You often work with teams in your classrooms. Talk about it. I want you to talk about the projects you've worked on. How can you work or talk about cyber? Have you taken any courses in cyber or marketing or security that might help give you an edge and give the company an edge if they were to hire you? Do you see how quickly and easily it is to distill those keywords from this? And I love that. That's great. Big asterisk. Remember, there's the intel we're given, but there's also the emotional side. And that's the moment when you go, wait, do I even want this job? I'll say that as a first generation student who was going into the world of work a little blind, without all of that advice, without a dad who was going to give me a job, I didn't have a great filter. And so if the job was open, I applied. And you can do that. I get it. I get that it might be frustrating. But I also want you to actually consider your happiness. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't be happy at work. That's not real. That's not true. You can have work you love, but first you need to understand what you actually love. This is what I want you to look for. And I would encourage you, write this down, think about it. Can I get this information? Because frankly, if you can't answer these questions, you don't know if you want this job. So the first one is the tasks. Do you like doing those things? Do you like sitting in meetings? Do you like building reports? Whatever it is. The impact of the work. Who do you actually help every day? Is that something that makes you feel alive? Is that something that might make you want to get up in the morning? Perks. What's in it for you? What do you get out of this? How are the benefits better or worse, maybe than compared to someone else? And tone. Do they pass the sham wow test? I'm probably aging myself. I imagine some of the organizers know this joke, but we had these telecommercials back before Hulu and Netflix. And there was this guy that sold these towels and these infomercials. Maybe you've seen them at the middle of the night if you're staying in a hotel or something, but they're trying to sell you something and you can feel it. A highly blah, blah, blah. And in the world of job postings, it kind of sounds like this: highly collaborative team player to join our A+ team. And you're like, that's not even real. You would not say that to my face. And that's what I mean by this sham wow test. And when you're looking at what's in it for me, again, let me give you this quick breakdown of what AbbVie is looking for and what's in it for you if you were to decide to work with them. This is for their internship program. And you could see that you can go to Illinois, that they have sponsored housing and shuttle services, that there are 3 work assignments and you'll learn across all of them. And in fact, I believe our panelists today represent both of these roles. And if you want to ask them about the daily activities, if you want to ask them about impact, stay tuned, stay after my session and go attend their panel to learn more. Because here's what it sounds like when it's going wrong. And we both know you don't always have access to ask, what does this really mean? Right? All of a sudden you're reading this. We're looking for somebody with a great sense of humor who's highly collaborative to join our team of A+ players and be a ninja that will blah, 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 blah. And let's get real, right? Most of us after the age of 7 know that we're not going to grow up to be ninjas. In fact, this guy is the only person who I know of as a ninja, and is who shows up if you Google ninja job. He's a YouTuber who does a bunch of gaming, but the rest of us, we're not going to be ninjas. That's just not going to happen. All right. Our next lesson is all about answering the question, tell me about yourself. I'd love if you could open the chat, and yes, Taylor, this will be recorded. Tell me about yourself. Who here feels 100% confident, yes or no, answering this question? Yes, I feel 100% confident just answering this question confidently and knowing exactly what to say. All right. It looks like the majority of you are really going to benefit from this next part. Listen up, because most people, when we say, tell me about yourself, you know what they do? Ramble. Pardon me, right? And it just gets way too long. I think that's my number one complaint with that one. Like, tell me about yourself should be simple. It should be clear, and you should end it with the zinger, the one thing that you want people to remember. But again, if you don't grow up in a family where everyone is super corporate, no one's going to sit you down and teach you how to answer this question. So exactly, it does take a lot of practice. And the first thing you got to do is write it down. All right. And you are going to practice this before you go into every single interview. I want you practicing it between now and the job fair next week. Okay. Write this down. Practice, practice, practice. Okay. So the number one thing I want you to do when telling someone about yourself is start with intrigue. I want you to think of something unique or interesting about your background. You might be surprised to know. All right, so let's start there. You might be surprised to know that I moved 13 times before I graduated high school. You might be surprised to know that I'm a first-generation student and I decided to take the path of becoming an engineer. Whatever it is, you might be surprised. Start there. Then you're going to mention something that proves that you did your research about that company. And y'all, I do not care if you stand to the side, open your phone and do a quick Google before you walk up to that table, do it. And you're going to swap out this sentence. Just like your company, or I thought you might be interested in that because I saw this on your site. Yes, your about me has to be a little bit about them. It has to bring them into your story. And so the next piece brings the two together. I think that's interesting because, or I'm using my background to help me. I want to work for you because if you can just hit on these 3 points, You can create something really concise and memorable, because I can tell you right now, if someone walked up and said, I have a very interesting life. I went to high school in this area, and then I went to college in this area, and I am studying English, I'm not going to remember them. I will remember you if you tell me something about the company that not everyone else is saying, and you tell me how your interesting background connects to my company. 100% I remember you. And that's better than any business card, because it means they call you first. All right. Lesson number 4 is about connecting. And when I say connecting, I mean that we are trying to create content online about ourselves that, again, makes you memorable. Because you know what? Sometimes we can't even get into the room, and we all know that, right? Sometimes they take a peek at our profile and we're just hoping it's enough for them to respond. I want to help you upgrade your profile beginning to end, and then we're going to move into some questions, and you can ask me anything, right? Ask me about your resume. Ask me about an interview scenario. Ask me how you can better prepare yourself for the job fair. I want to see every single person ask a question. If you have time, pop open that Q&A. Think about what would help you. It could be completely left field or something that we mentioned today. Let me help you upgrade your career, because this is a beginning, not an ending. All right. So I love it. I love to see. And if you're watching the chat, we have a couple of people who have interviews tomorrow. Let's upgrade your LinkedIn profile today. All right. So I want to start this section talking about understanding your reader, because they are my customer and you will likely not meet as many of them as I have. Way too many recruiters. Okay, people, way too many. So when we think about your reader, on the other side of this is a recruiter who has never done your job before, unless you happen to be applying to a recruiting job. They are someone who is probably filling anywhere between 15 and 50 jobs. They are coordinating multiple steps and multiple layers across jobs at every level, across many locations, often. I'm saying all of this to say that they are hurrying, they are rushing, and they are not leisurely reviewing applications when they decide to open a job. For them, it's kind of like looking for keys. They are put in a room and you're like, find your keys. And their mission is to find the keys. The intel they were given was something from a manager, or it might be completely made up based on their beliefs, okay? So we really need to meet them where they're at, that they do not have a ton of information about this job. So you can assume that if you have ever said the phrase, they'll know what I mean, the answer is no. They will not be able to read between the lines of your content, because there's 2 pieces to how they read. And I've seen this over and over again, even when I post my own stuff. What happens is, first, they read in an F pattern. And we read like this too. Everyone does. So imagine you're scanning a web page online and you see the first thing. You're scanning the top headline. That's what we do every time. Then we scroll a little bit. We scan a little bit. Scroll, scan, scroll, scan. That's how recruiters read resumes. That's how recruiters are reading your LinkedIn profile. Viewing the top content, scanning down. Viewing the middle content, scanning down, all right? And so you're knowing that they are reading your LinkedIn pattern, your LinkedIn profile in an F pattern. I want you to optimize the view based on that knowledge. Now, how long do you think a recruiter will take to review your profile in the first place? I want you to open up that chat. Seconds, all right? Yep, it is not minutes, it is even less. How many seconds do you think they will spend when they're doing a quick scan to see if they have the right person? All right, we have numbers all over the place. 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 30, 45. Drum roll, please. And I did see the right answer come through. The answer is 6 seconds. All right. Let's not do anything to make them run. You got 6 seconds to make an impression. What are you going to do to stand out in the good way? Right? What are you going to do to help them recognize that you are the right person? Let's start at the top. We're going to work our way right down this profile. All right. So if you are sitting at a computer, maybe if you have 2 screens, open up your LinkedIn profile. I want you to take notes as we go. I want you to see if you meet all of these criteria as we walk through each of these slides. All right. The first thing we want to look at is your profile picture. Here's what needs to happen. These are not negotiable. Let me be very, very clear. This is not negotiable. You need to do all of these things. Your profile picture must meet the following criteria. Number 1, it has to be you from the last 3 years. All right. No baby pictures. No, I was such a cute kid. I literally want them to be able to look at this LinkedIn profile and then look up. And if they looked at you, they would know that was the same person. None of these glamour shots either, which is probably aging myself. So we'll say filters, no over filtering your picture. Okay. And the reason why you need a picture is because we know that it creates a familiarity and it also creates recognition. So if they really love your profile, and I'm answering this for Crystal in the chat, they really love your profile and they see that picture and you come up to them at the job fair, they're going to remember that they've already seen you. You will feel more familiar, even if they don't remember all of the details of what you're about to share. Next, I want to see a solid background. So the background image should be something that is solid because you want no distractions. I do not want any of that, like, I looked really good in this picture, but there was a party behind me pictures. Call your friend who knows how to do Photoshop, use something like Canva, clean that stuff up. Nothing distracting in the background. And number 3, it has to be a picture just of you. No friends, no boyfriends, no girlfriends, no partners, no kids. I don't care how cute the kid is, just you. Again, this is about you standing out, not showing off something else. And yes, you gotta smile. It is just nice. All right. I don't know how I have to say that, but I have had to explain this one too many times. That's why it stays on the slide. All right. Next, your headline. So the headline is the sentence that goes right underneath your picture. And what I do not want to see is in that headline is something that says looking for work. No, because no recruiter is Googling looking for work. They're looking for marketing. They're looking for entry level. They're looking for college, right? They're looking for some other detail. And that headline has a distinct impact on who they find when they're searching. It is also their first impression. So they see that picture. Oh, you look nice. And then they're going to see this little headline that's supposed to tell them if they're on the right track. You're getting a quick 1 second. And if that says something that does not align with what they think they want, they're going to automatically opt out from you because it's not worth reaching out to someone they don't think will take the job. This also directly influences how many people look at your profile. If you don't have any of the keywords, they'll never find you. And this could influence how people make decisions. If it's coming down to the last bit and they're looking at multiple profiles and deciding who they want to send that intel to, they're going to pick which one. And don't let something on your LinkedIn profile influence someone in the wrong way. And there's a lot more content here, right? Even if you're entry level, you still need to write that overview section. You still need to tell people that profile, assuming that nothing else in the section may have slowed them down scanning. And it's really easy to stand out here because most people's LinkedIn profiles absolutely suck. I'm not going to fluff that one. They do suck. And this is what a sucky profile looks like. It looks like someone taking every single keyword they think is important from that word cloud generator, and they wrote skilled in, and then they just started typing. Or worse, they just copied and pasted and just left it there, right? I'm not going to ask in the chat because I know we've all done it, myself included. You just copy and paste something you think you like because you think that's the good one. We're not doing that anymore. All right. No more. Please, please stop. No more keyword loading because that's not going to help people get the intel, right? You are entry level. You have to have a different conversation with people. And that means you need to tell more of a story than pretty much anyone does to get someone's interest. And here's what I want you to keep in mind as we're writing this and we're winding down this presentation. The first is that it needs to be written for a person, not about work. Yeah, people read this. So you don't just need to sit there and hyper invest and use your entire character count to talk about everything you've done. You need to say something interesting so that person remembers you. Your LinkedIn profile should be an introduction to you and your interests. It does not need to be some boring list of words that say a lot without saying anything at all, like those awful job postings you've been reading. It should also explain the impact that you want to create. I help people build databases. I help people find new customers through marketing. I want to change how this happens, right? Tell the story. And lastly, and this is the biggest part of this lesson that I want you to hear, is that it is personal, not professional. I really don't know where we got it in our heads that if being yourself is wrong, that being yourself is going to get you kicked out of a job search process. I think being yourself is exactly what should get you a job. You should not work at a place who's going to not appreciate or accept who you are. And so before I even give you this example and you're thinking about what to write, I want to give you permission to be you, to be funny, to be weird, to be crazy, be different, stand out, be who you are because who you are matters. Don't go into a job and be miserable because you hid for years. I did it. I am speaking this as something that is true and real for me. Do not avoid telling people who you are or be scared of sharing that simply because you think you won't be accepted. Tell your story. All right. And yes, if you're wondering, these are the adorable dogs that I named 3 Years Media after. They have 4 ears, but the one has the big ears. So when they sit like this, you can only see 3. I have learned this lesson through my own truth, through living my own life. And I haven't taken every job that I was offered because I didn't always feel like I could be who I am. And I know from starting my own company, from standing out in front of a lot of HR and recruiting professionals, is that they're always wondering who you are. They want to know. All right. So here's what I want to see. I want to see something that's personal. I want to see how that you can really sell this. Make sure, by the way, if you are asking any questions in the chat right now, that you put them into the Q&A function so that we make sure and get to you just in case I don't see it while I'm reading through these, okay? So you might want to write something like this. As an Army brat, I moved 18 times before I graduated high school. Living and learning in so many different cultures taught me a lot. For one thing, storytelling. Most people have no idea how to tell their stories. That's why I chose writing as my field of interest. I want to write stories that get noticed. I'm interested in a marketing associate role where I can write, tell stories. All right. You'll notice this follows a very similar outline to the conversation we had about the About Us, the intrigue that we reviewed, right? I want to see you building it up, having these conversations so that people can connect with you and learn from who you are and very clearly understand what you want. If you take nothing else from this, I need you to steal the last sentence. Straight up. So after you do your Google Trends analysis and you understand which job title gets the most search volume, you must incorporate this sentence. I'm interested in a blank role where I ... Okay, so the ... is where you are going to literally list the everyday tasks you see and why you want to do those. Tell the recruiter point blank who you are, why that's interesting, and what you want to know. Okay? All right. So, on that note, those are our 4 lessons. I mentioned this briefly. I'm the only Katrina Kibben in the world. So if you spell my name right, you will find me, and I'd highly encourage you to do that. I'm not just a speaker, I'm a human. And we could even be friends. I will listen. I will answer your questions here in the chat or personally if you decide to reach out. You can connect with me on any of these social media channels. You can always send me an email at katrina@3earsmedia.com, or you can participate in this conversation right now as we wind this up, get ready for a break, and then to speak to our incredible panelists this afternoon who are going to help you understand the job search and really understand the careers that they have now. So on that note, I know that we have a few of the questions coming through, and I want to ask whoever is moderating our session today to jump in and ask me whatever questions these students would like to have answered. Or maybe it's me. I'll just jump right in. All right. So an anonymous attendee asked, how do you see the jobs in the field changing over the next 5 years? What can I do to prepare myself for such changes? All right. So I think there are a few dimensions to the change that we could be aware of that would help us figure out what we can do to prepare. The first thing I'm going to tell you is prepare for the now. Because while I believe that a lot changes in very specific fields, the majority of corporate fields do not evolve in this way, right? They don't move that fast. HR recruiting is one example. Now, if you are in a field that is moving very quickly, I highly recommend that you engage in different communities where you can ask questions and where you're watching people talk through real world problems in real time. I specifically want to make sure that anyone who's in a technology field is doing this because we know that tech is always moving very, very quickly. Second, I would say is using that Google Trends analysis to look at the related searches. So the first one that I would suggest is where they say, so when you open Google Trends, you'll enter those job titles and you'll scroll down and it will have a calendar first. Then it will have volume. Then it will show you related searches. Those related searches are often things that you need to know for the next phase of your career. The final thing I would say is changing the job title for the next job that you want and Googling it the same way. So maybe you're a manager of marketing right now, type director of marketing and then hit and resume, then hit enter and review those additional resumes to understand what you need to know to get to the next level. I don't know your name, but I really hope that answered your question. I hope you would not hesitate to throw something in the chat if there's anything that I missed. All right. Let's call that good. Moderator, do you want to jump in or do you want me to just keep going? Just hit me in the chat and I can keep going.
I can jump in if you want. If that is easiest.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. So how do you see the jobs in the field changing over the next 5 years?
That's the one I just answered.
Okay, sorry. How to work inside a big company like Big Four.
Yeah.
And fit their needs. How to evaluate my skills if I move to the US from a different country. I have experience in cybersecurity for 15 years and need to expand my knowledge in such big companies. I'm a master's degree student at UTSA.
Awesome. Well, Mohammed, thank you so much for asking the question. I really, really appreciate that. And so I want to first address what a Big Four company is for anyone who's not aware. So a Big Four company, they're usually referred to as the largest consulting firms in the world. Deloitte, Accenture, you may have heard of them. If not, what consulting firms do is they build centers of excellence inside their companies, and lend them out to very large corporations so that you can serve those companies, and those companies don't have to invest in the talent and expertise that these consulting firms have over the long haul, right? If you've done something for 10 years, you're probably a little better at it than some company who's starting from zero and currently has a major problem. So when you're going to a big company, we need to consider that. Consider your audience. So the first thing that I would tell you is to go look at people who have the jobs you want. Go find them on LinkedIn, look up the job title you want on LinkedIn, and find the profile of people who currently have the job that you want. Mirror your profile, look a lot like theirs. Make sure that you can use their intel and all of their advice to inform and upgrade your current profile. I want you to talk about your experience in cybersecurity to make sure that they understand that wealth of experience. And this is the part that most people miss, how to address the question directly, right? So, how to address your experience in the consulting environment. So what in your 15 years is going to prepare you better than anyone else to sit in front of a very large multinational company who really needs cybersecurity support and doesn't have it right now? Why are you the expert, and how can you help a very large company? What do you understand about that unique problem that someone else might not get? If you can do all of those things, I think you have an incredible opportunity of making an impression. And I would add one other piece is that in these very large companies, referrals matter greatly. Make connections, reach out to people, be bold, ask questions. The best way to get a job at a Big Four company is to be referred.
Okay, so your next question, how do we work on being strong and independent without sounding difficult to work with?
Yep. So I want you to find scenarios in which your strength and independence made you better at the job, right? So you do not need to say, I am strong and independent. What I want you to actually say is, I'm more able to work independently to solve problems in real time. If I don't know the answer, I will Google it and figure it out, right? When I think about strong and independent, what I think about, and I'm just going to put this bluntly since we're all friends here, I call it, a figure shit out quotient, right? You can open up the internet and figure it out. And a lot of companies are looking for people like that. So you want to take examples of where that strength and independence applies to help show off the fact that you know what you're doing. And if you don't, you'll figure it out or ask the questions to get there.
I was muted. All right, next question. How do you segue skills on resume and LinkedIn from one industry to another?
Yep. So I really love that phrase, Brittany, about you might be surprised to know, right? Because it's an interesting way of showing someone something that might be contrary to their opinion. So they might have an opinion that marketing and accounting have nothing in common. However, you might be surprised to know that accounting and marketing have a lot in common, right? So you need to address the thing that might be holding you back first, and then explain how those skills apply. The other thing that you can do as you're looking at your resume, for example, when we're going through your work history, is to find sample resumes for the job you want, and then tailor the language about your work history to describe it in the keywords and ways that they describe it on the resumes for that role versus the traditional way that we might describe marketing versus accounting, for example.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, whenever I write a resume, I feel like I overthink font, color, and format. How important is it really?
I would guarantee that if you think you're overthinking it, you are 100% overthinking it. All right. So here's the thing that we have to remember is that this content goes into an applicant tracking system, an ATS, and then it's all delivered uniform. Most of those colors, the font, the format won't ever come through. What happens is it will take all of it and it will create 30 Times New Roman 12-point font because they have been able to see that some of those can create different biased outcomes. And so I would tell you not to think about that at all. Spend a lot more of your effort on the keywords that you think would help you be found.
Okay. How would you stand out when dealing with a phone interview, and pointers that we could do to secure an in-person opportunity?
I love that. All right, Antonio. So if I'm getting on a phone interview, the very first thing I'm doing is practicing like crazy. All right, there's two questions that I think I remember practicing before I got on an interview. The first one is tell me about yourself. And the second one is tell me about your work history, because if you don't get asked the first one, you'll be asked the second one, and you better be able to answer both succinctly. Now, as far as answering that question, what I typically do is you give a little bit of extra information about the beginning, you create a string that connects all of the information in between, and then finally, you're going to say where you are today. Now, that is a different question for a longer time. And if you want any coaching on that, just shoot me an email. I will be more than happy to connect with you and give you some of my more in-depth answers, because I realize that we only have 10 more minutes for questions. Now, as far as getting through it, I think the best way to go through any interview and the best advice that you can use is to answer the question you are asked. And if you do not know how to answer the question you are asked, you need to ask for clarification. You are not stupid if you do not know what they're asking, okay? Don't ramble on because you just don't want to ask, or you don't want to look whatever. All right. I have made that mistake one too many times. Please don't do that to yourself, because I wanted to show off. I want to be confident. I wanted to be strong. That's not what they're looking for. Truly, they're looking for someone who can ask great clarifying questions. They're looking for someone who follows up with an ask instead of just assuming the answer. Okay. So answer the question they are being asked, ask clarifying questions to make sure. And here's my last tip. Your very last question should be, what's the next best step? What's the next step in this role? What's the best next step for me? Should I follow up with you? When should I follow up? Ask the questions because it shows your interest in the role, but it also gives you a little bit of intel so you're not stressing and sweating it out, right? While you're waiting to hear what they're going to do. And send a thank you note. Sounds old-fashioned, I know, but seriously, I cannot tell you how many old-fashioned hiring leaders there are who are so desperate to get a thank you note, and it will make you stand out above anyone else.
Great. Next question. I've received a degree in biology and I have entry-level experience in healthcare, but now I'm looking into becoming a software developer. How can I update my resume with no related experience?
Yeah. So if you have entry-level experience in healthcare and you're looking to become a software developer, I would strongly suggest that you are taking some courses and doing some practical work in software development. There are a lot of teams that will hire you with absolutely no experience in the corporate world, but you must have experience in code communities. You have to be able to talk about what kind of work you like, how you've reviewed it, and how you have edited and learned in real time. So it's less about your background, that resume, and more about what you are learning and how you're applying it right now. I'd also be interested to know if you're looking to apply your healthcare background and your software development background, because there are a ton of healthcare companies looking for software developers. And that is a really interesting blend that could create a really impactful career for you.
Okay. What challenges and opportunities are associated within your company?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a first generation student who does not have a huge fallback. So, creating a company from nothing and creating a market that never existed before has been interesting, challenging too. I've learned a lot. I highly recommend entrepreneurship, but not as your first job. All right. Fun fact, I actually started a company into my third job. It was open. My company was a company for 3 days. And then I canceled it because I was offered a job. I recommend that if you want to go into entrepreneurship, that you really start to build your network in the fields in which you believe that you may want to create a great idea for, so that you have those connections, because it will help you build business right out of the gate. I think big picture, when you're starting a company too, there's also a little bit of fear about ever having to go back into the corporate world. And there's always the challenge of believing in yourself. Remember when I showed all of you that slide with those really, really adorable dogs on it? And I talked about being yourself. I think overcoming the belief that I had to be something, I had to be exactly what people expect to be successful, is the number one challenge for anyone, whether you decide to go to corporate or start your own career. And I want to encourage you to be yourself always. It's worth it.
Okay. Is it a good idea to get a few certifications through LinkedIn Learning Portal?
I mean, I think it depends on your field. If you are working in HR and recruiting, I think there's a lot of value to getting certifications through the LinkedIn Learning Portal. I would say outside of that, there are probably more industry specific learning opportunities that may be more effective in helping you get a job.
As a psychology major, I am interested in learning what in particular skills, educational background, and experience I may need for employers to be interested in the psych field.
Yeah. So what I would suggest for you is to open up a job board, Indeed or something else. And I want you to type in, with quotations, the psychology major. What that does when you open up Indeed is that it does an exact keyword match. When you type psych major or all caps, I'm going to put this into the chat just so everyone can see it. It's going to say psych major in quotations, all caps, or psychology major. If you're not familiar with Boolean logic, what this says is I want you to search the whole database and I want you to find anything that mentions psych major verbatim or psychology major verbatim. That's going to help give you a quick preview of what types of jobs are related to that psych major. The other thing I would tell you is that think bigger. If you want to be a psychiatrist, if you want to be a therapist, okay, I think that's a very traditional path. But I do believe that your background and intel is only going to help you apply that to anyone. Because you know what machines can't do? Understand people. Or even explain what people really mean. And if you can do that, I think that it will really help you in any career. So think bigger.
Great. Next question. What is the best way for entry-level students to stand out without previous experience and that fit the job requirements?
Yeah. I think the first way is to find somebody who has the job and actually talk to them. I also think telling your story, right? So maybe you don't have the exact background, whatever, you need to convince them that they should consider yours and why. Use the phrase, you might be surprised. We need to address any conflicts or anything that you think might be holding you back. Address that first and then get into the rest.
How to get over the idea that we're underqualified for certain positions and just apply.
I know this feeling all too well. So remember when I said that I built an entire company off of writing job postings? Fun fact, recruiters don't know how to write job postings. That's how I built an entire global company with employees and like real official stuff about job postings. So I think the easiest way to get over that is to realize that they don't know what the hell they're doing. Right? And so if you meet 50% or more of the criteria and you actually want the job, I strongly encourage everyone to apply.
Any advice for people applying to jobs in education, K through 12 or higher ed? I recently applied to a job and I wrote a diversity statement and application process. And it was my first time typing a diversity statement for a position.
Yeah, don't start from zero. I think my biggest piece of advice when you're applying to any job, education or otherwise, is to type in diversity statement example, diversity statement education example, right? Go in and Google, click on the image search results, and review that and include it and use those examples to build what you believe would be the best possible tool. You are not required to create original content to get a job, okay? Use the examples that exist on the internet.
How do you nail an internship and how do you write a resume to get an internship?
Yep. You nail an internship by asking, what else can I do? And how can I create the most impact? By far. I've had interns on my team, and the people who ask those questions are the people that I've hired. As far as getting the internship in the first place, your resume needs to explain why that internship. For someone a little farther into their career, I often tell them to skip the objective because their work history explains that the objective is getting the next job. But for you, you need a strong objective that says to apply these skills to an internship here so that I can. So that I can is the part that's missing from most objective statements. We do not describe the impact we want to create. So if you want to stand out in an internship, describe the impact that you want to make, because most people believe that interns make no impact, and that's a lie.
Okay. Is it okay to include preferred gender pronouns in a resume?
Absolutely. And often you'll see them included in the applicant tracking system too. Easy way to tell if there's a strong belonging and inclusive program at that company.
Okay. Sometimes it's possible to apply on several job platforms or the company website. Is one option better than the other? And should we apply in more than one area?
Yes, one is better than the other. In my opinion, I always go to the company website and apply. And here's why. So job boards are created by scrapers. So scrapers go out into the internet, they find what they think are jobs, they suck them all in and they put them on there, right? So in that space, sometimes the suckage pulls stuff that's already down, or it pulls things that were removed from a website and they're still live over here because the job board wants to have a lot more jobs posted because that's what keeps you coming back. What I would tell you is when you find a few jobs on Indeed or anywhere else that you think are interesting, go to that company's website, review and apply there, because one, you know the job is still open, but two, you're also not relying on that person to log into Indeed to see applications. You know that you are already part of the applicant tracking system and you are being delivered directly to the person who makes the decision.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge that we're at 11:14, but there are like 4 more questions. So are you good to keep going?
100%. I just want to make sure everyone gets their bathroom breaks if they need them.
Yes. All right. Okay. So next question is, what is your main advice when doing face-to-face interviews?
That's a great question, Nicholas. The first piece of advice I have for you is make eye contact. All right. Be a decent human, make eye contact, smile back, right? I know we have masks on, but you can tell when someone's smiling. Look at my eyes. You can tell, right? Put a little energy into it. Again, my second piece of advice, I mentioned this earlier, I think it's worth saying twice. Answer the question you are asked. And if you do not use, if you don't know the answer, you must ask a clarifying question.
I have a major in Spanish, but I'm not sure what other jobs are out there. Any suggestions?
Absolutely. There are a ton of jobs that are looking for bilingual candidates right now. You can work in sales, you can work in customer service, in marketing, in global marketing, interpretation is an entire field now because more than ever, content has to be interpreted multiple times. Michelle, literally the opportunities are endless for you right now. And when you're looking for jobs, I want you not to just look for things that mention your degree. Make sure you're searching bilingual, you're searching on multiple websites, and also, again, going back to the company websites and really looking to see what they're talking about and what the intent is too, so that you're not, the only interpreter in this enormous company either.
Okay. Next question. I'm 45 years old. I have 25 years of experience in different industries. How far should I go back? And does the one-page rule still apply?
That's a great question. All right, Melissa. So how I see it is I only want relevant experience, but I do need to see the fluid. So here's how I do it. I do 10 years back, nothing more, nothing less. So if I can go 10 years back, or at least the last 5 jobs is typically the average. If you have 25 years of experience, screw the 1-page rule. I don't know who made that up, so I don't follow rules when I don't know who made them up. So we want to go at least 2 pages with 25 years. My tipping point is 10, by the way. 7 to 10 years of experience is when you tip onto the second page and when I would expect you to go into a second page. However, my biggest piece of advice for you is when you have a lot of different industries, you must have different versions of your resume. So for me, when I would apply to typical jobs, I had a marketing version of my resume. I had an employer brand version of my resume. I had a recruiting version of my resume. Took every single skill I used all the time, but it put it in the language that those jobs use it. I put in the context where that skill would apply. Having those versions helps you have a more applicable resume.
How could I stand out with unrelated work experience in a professional environment, working as a busser to a financial associate role?
Yeah. I would be less, well, or I have 2 thoughts on this. My first thought is that there is a tie, right? All right, I'm just going to make this up, but I write a lot of profiles and help people understand how their application, how their experience applies. So this might help. So a busser is always moving. They're always looking for the next thing and they have to be detail oriented. A financial associate does too. Literally what I just said, I would write that on your LinkedIn profile, right? I would write that on your resume. You can be a human, tell the story. And so it's not necessarily about standing out. It's about helping people understand how your previous experience and the role you want tie together and what you know how to do.
When you come across the salary negotiation stage, how would you suggest a candidate proceed?
That is such a good question. I might even add this lesson to this presentation because not knowing how to negotiate salary, I was underpaid a lot, right? Because I worked for people like the farm, you just get paid what we make. Like there's no salary. And then in the military, it's all pay bands. So you make it to this level, you do this many years, you get this much money. So no one in my family knew how to negotiate. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is if any of your friends already have this job, you're going to ask them how much money they're making. And you're going to tell them that we shouldn't be shy about this because we all get to negotiate. Okay. So step number 1, find somebody who has the job. Step number 2, go to salary.com and look at regional data around what job they have. The number 3 piece of information that I have for you is to ask this question. You better write this down. It's going to make you so much money. And I'm so mad that no one told me this beforehand. Okay. Write this down. What is the salary band on this role? Salary band meaning what is the bottom and what is the top? Follow-up question. What experience do I have to get the top? So you can tell them, yeah, I already did that. I was a leader. I did lead 5 different online, campus organizations. I do have experience with Excel. I can run pivot tables. I have worked with a bank for 1 year, whatever that is. Ask both questions. And you are always welcome to say, I looked at salary.com and I see this as the band and the average pay in this area. Can you meet that? Other piece of advice on salary, ask first, not last. Don't you dare wait until the very last conversation when you really want the job and they really want you and you're having this love fest. And then they're like, how much do you want to make? Because you will lowball yourself. Because you'll be like, oh, I really want this job. I should just say yes. And that's bullshit. I'm so sorry. I feel very, very strongly about this topic because you deserve to be paid. You deserve to be paid a livable wage. You must negotiate and advocate on behalf of yourself, please. And don't say no for like $2,000 difference because that doesn't actually make an impact on your actual paycheck. Off my soapbox now. So, sorry, Julie. I had to.
That's all right. I was going to say this is the last question, and then I have a couple more who came in.
I love it.
Yes, like you're answering a lot of questions in a short amount of time. How often should we be updating our resume?
Every time you leave a job. And what I like to do is I actually had a document, a resume writer taught me this. I had a document called Achievements at this company. And so I would save it on a Google Drive. I have a folder called Career. And every single time I would start a new job, it would be called Achievements at da-da-da. because it's really hard to think back and describe your achievements once you're 3 years into the job and you don't even remember that you were, that you got a cover story on Mashable and you did a Super Bowl campaign, right? Like you're going to forget these little things. You're going to forget to mention them. So creating that achievements document, you go and plug in your achievements in real time, but you do not edit your resume in real time because then it looks like a weird little patchwork document. It's not supposed to look like that. Do your achievements, and then when you're ready to leave, you update your resume with the achievements document. You don't have to change much else, and then you move into the next role.
For current college students, what should be included in the education section of the resume?
Yep. So your current degree program, right? You want to obviously have that outlined, where you're going, what degree program you're pursuing. I do not go out of my way to share GPA because I don't think it's actually relevant towards success. And I am trying to train HR and recruiting teams every single day about why that is not a metric we need to one-to-one in. I would also show interesting activities, interesting education that you are pursuing in your own time. Daniel, I don't think it was you, it was someone else who was asking about software engineering, right? You want to talk about where you're coding, where your work samples are, what you're doing. If you have an interest in art history, but you have also been studying business, you want to list those art history courses and other education you're pursuing, because it's a great way to show versus tell that you are outgoing, that you are top talent, and that you're ambitious without saying, I'm ambitious top talent looking for a great job, because no one believes you when you say it like that.
Okay, I think this is our last question.
I got one more in the chat. So we got
Yes,
two more
I
at
see
least.
it. Oh, so there's, why do they care about me as a person? Is it even their business?
Yeah. I mean, no, no, it's not their business who you are. However, if I have to hang out with other people for 40 hours a week, you better believe I want to like them. And I know that liking is like a very low bar, but you have to be a bearable human, and I say this as someone who hires people into my own company, right? I have to talk to them all the time. That's why they care. That's the shortest answer. They care because they have to deal with you.
Great. All right. So, what jobs should political science majors apply to?
Yeah. All right. So, Ricardo, fun fact, I have a double major. I'm a communications and political science major. Everything. It doesn't matter. You apply to the jobs you think you want. What do you want to do? What do you want to do every day? I'd encourage you, especially people with, backgrounds or degree programs that maybe it doesn't one-to-one into a career, right? There's not that linear path of like, I went to doctor school, so now I'm a doctor, right? Like medical school, sorry. I don't know why I said that. So you go to medical school, you're going to be a doctor. It's very clear path. Political science, not a clear path. So I want you to start thinking back to that slide I shared. What do I want to do every day? What impact do I want to create? Work backwards from there instead of working backwards from your degree program.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Great advice. It was great to have all these questions.
Yeah.
Sorry it took me a while to come on. I didn't have in my notes that it was me,
It's all good.
but it's fun. Just so fun to have you here. Great questions from the audience. Reminder that we'll be back at 11:30 for the panel. So thanks again, everybody. Virtual round of applause for Katrina. Thank you so much.